Check this out.
Okay, folks.
noon. We're going to go to 12:15. We got a bunch of recruits in. Coach has got a lot of things to do. I got 2 other guys we got to get in here. We're going to go with one and done with questions so we can get as many in. Open up Dave Bill, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, a week into spring ball, what are you most pleased about overall?
I like the energy of practice. You guys got a chance to see it a couple of days anyways. It was early, but there's just been good energy. I think the coaching staff's some new faces in there. They've been prepared for the practices. I think the leadership's been good. I think the effort's been good. Overall, just a lot of juice in practice, a lot of people moving around with a purpose, getting some great feedback from recruits and families who come in and watch us work and the way we work. So that part's been good. This is now, today was a helmets practice. We'll go to Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday padded, and hopefully get a feel for kind of where we're at. First 4 practices have sort of been just heavy install, but good effort so far.
Dan Hope, I'm worried.
Ryan, the last couple of years, you've had some guys who are still on the team participate in Pro Day. Are you going to have any guys who are on the team going through with drills Wednesday?
Yeah, we do. Really, we have just about every position represented, so we don't need a ton of help, but we will. I think Mick's still finalizing that, but it'll probably be my guess would be Carnell and Brandon to help with the receivers, help with the Mecca, and Will. But I think that may be it. But I think we're still working to finalize that for Wednesday.
Austin Ward's podcast.
Right. I asked about Austin Sarabelt last week. I'm just going to keep doing that, I guess. Are we not talking about him in the right way? It felt like swing guy, maybe 6th guy, and he gets the Iron Buckeye as well.
Right.
Could he – I know it's so early. Could he start at one of these spots for you?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope that's the goal. When you think about the guys who have come in that 3rd year, is really a lot of those guys take the next step. And that's what we want with Austin. And usually it's a good sign when you're an Iron Buckeye coming out of the winter. It's a great sign. So, again, I think it's funny. You get done on January 20th, and then you start up, just a week ago. And it wasn't that only like 2 months ago. But sometimes you can come in with a different demeanor, different look in your eye, different approach. And, he's so far shown that look in his eye. Now, what he puts on the field here this spring was yet to be determined. But up until this point, he's done everything right.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
And last year's nucleus came from that 21 recruiting class. The 22 recruiting class, only 7 of those guys in the 21 are still here.
Right.
And Sonny wasn't even supposed to be here. Why do you think that class hasn't panned out, and how important is it that the remaining guys do make an impact this year?
It's funny. I was looking at that just recently, and I think a lot of it had to do with the class that was ahead of them and the class that was behind them. And some guys deciding to come back last year. There was just a lot of reasons, and for whatever reason, that group never made it up the depth chart. Some guys early on in their career, some guys later.
Coach, can I introduce you to Joe Reedy, new writer for Associated Press right over there. Joe, go ahead.
Ryan, just a weekend with Matt Patricia. How do you assess just him working with the defense and getting up to speed?
A lot of energy, building relationships right now, just getting started. But I think the feedback from our players has been good. I think they really enjoy the conversation, the extra time that they get a chance to spend some one-on-one time with Matt. His experience and credibility speaks for itself. I think they know that, but now they're getting a chance to meet him, and I think it's been great. I think we've gotten great feedback from the recruits as well, who have had a chance to meet with him, and we're just starting to dive into some of the different things that we can do on defense, and there was a couple good things today. So we'll see. Again, just a couple weeks in, but again, I look at the staff chemistry and then chemistry with the players, and so far that's been really solid.
Tony German, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, you guys don't normally go into the FCS for a transfer. What made Logan George the right guy for you, and what have you seen from him so far?
Yeah, he comes from the same hometown as Tommy, and we felt like we at least knew some people there to ask questions about his background, and then watched his film and just saw a player who played really hard and really physical and tough. Brought him in, really liked his family and his support system, and just what they believe in. And we felt like it was the right fit. When you bring somebody in, as you know, it has to be the right fit in terms of a player, but also who they are as a person and their characters and their beliefs and their values, and really aligned with Logan during that time. And he's come in and actually did a nice job in those 2 weeks when we were preparing to play in those last 2 games of last year. And he's taken it from there, did a nice job in the weight room. He's a very serious guy, but he's earned the respect of our team in a short period of time.
Matt Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Right, given the openings at both tackle positions.
Yeah.
How important is this spring for the two guys you brought in, and what have you seen from them? I know early on, but the two transfer tackles.
I like the way that we're working right now. I think there's a good rhythm about, Tyler and all the guys. I think when you see Marcus, Coach Dickey, they're attacking this thing, all three of them, and there's just a good rhythm about them. They're breaking up the work. I think the guys on the offensive line feel like they're getting better coming off the field every day. And you're seeing a lot of guys swing right now, playing a couple different positions, and some of the techniques are similar. They'll start to settle themselves down, but right now those guys are just working, competing. But as we know, the tackle position will be critical as we move into the next year.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Just a bigger thing. I don't know if we've figured out the details yet for the spring showcase or not, but there are other programs around the country who have been deciding not to have spring games at all. The rule mentions because he didn't want people looking at his players and stealing them. Why is that still important for Ohio State to have, whatever it's going to look like, have something on that day for the fans to see at the end of the season?
Yeah, I think it's good for everyone to know. Like, my plan is to have a spring game. I just think we need to save a little bit of wiggle room in case we take injuries. That's it. So we want to do this. We want to play a spring game. Now, there may be some guys that are held from the spring game, but not many. We feel like, again, we're 159 days away from playing Texas, and that day will matter to a lot of young players. So we need to get out there and compete. The format of it and how it works will probably be similar to what we've done in the past. So it'll be a great opportunity for fans and folks to see our guys and get out there and play. That part of it, to me, it is what it is. But we need to go do it. It's important that we start the season fast, and I think that first step is playing in the spring game. If we're down some linemen or down some bodies and we have to adjust, we'll figure that out from there. But we're, I guess, just 3 weeks out here, and so we plan on playing in that spring game on April 12th. So looking to get a great crowd, and I know we got some great things planned that day.
Adam King, WBMS.
Coach, Brian Hartline, your relationship with him during practice now, how different was that from 2 years ago? How much has that grown? And what does his role look like right now?
Well, he's got the headset on, kind of like Chip did, and he's calling the plays and talking to the quarterback. So that relationship is important. And, we talked about the other day that, there's going to be times where he's going to meet with the quarterbacks and the receivers in the room together, which is something that I think is important as the play caller, because he's got to have a connection with the quarterback. They got to be on the same page. And so, that part of it in practice is something he's getting used to, as opposed to not having the headset on, not communicating to the quarterback, just coaching his receivers. So it's been good. The first 4 days, we're just getting used to it and working out the kinks, but he certainly knows the offense well, knows how to call plays and all that. It's just, finding that rhythm of how do you do that in practice. And I think there's going to be times where maybe, we have somebody else just call it into the quarterback. They can almost literally read off the script so that he can get out there and start coaching the guys. But it's different than just calling a play like it was in the past. Now you're actually, saying it to the quarterback. And that's something that Chip did every single day, whether it was a walkthrough or it was at practice. And I think that's something we need to continue as much as we can without interfering with the teaching.
Dave Holmes, WSYS.
Yeah, Ryan, you lost a lot of leadership as well as talent. I'm curious, now that you're around this group, is there a different personality on all these teams, or is that maintained by the coaches? What's kind of the feel of this team as opposed to last year?
There's consistency, but I think, to your point, one of the challenges that I gave to the leadership group was finding their voice and personality. I think it's coming out. I think you're seeing it, which has been great to see. I don't think we're there yet. I think they just need more opportunity and more time.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Roll.
Ryan Jeremiah is named an Iron Buckeye. Did you guys issue a challenge to him after the championship game to just continue to push to get better? And what have those conversations been like with him since that freshman season?
Well, he was an Iron Buckeye as a freshman, which I think he's the first ever. And then to come back and do it again shows his discipline. And this is something that we talk a lot about. Talent is one thing. Does he have talent? You're darn right he does. But it doesn't always necessarily mean you have discipline to continue to do it over and over again. Make the right decisions on a daily basis on taking care of your body and the effort and the work and the intensity and the attitude. But you see all those things. And that, to me, what is the biggest difference for it, or differentiator with Jeremiah? It's that. And then obviously the skill, and he controls how much discipline and skill he has in his life. And so that's something we tell our entire team to focus on. God's given you a certain amount of talent. It's the discipline and skill that you control. And that's, to me, where he, again, is special. And his work ethic sets an example for the other guys. There was a day last week where we're in special teams and he goes through and does one of the reps on special teams And it was a drill that maybe he won't do. It was actually a defensive sort of drill where he gets your hands on a guy and snags him. And so, when he's up there and that's the example for the whole team, if I'm a guy like Quincy or one of these young guys like Dez, I'm watching it saying, wait a minute, if Jeremiah's doing it, I got to do it. And that's great leadership right there. And we need that as we move forward, Jeremiah. And I think, he's done it by example, but in his own way, if you can start bringing guys with him, that's the next step for him.
Jimmy Watkins, Cleveland.com.
Brian, we asked you a couple weeks ago about separating Matt's work from what Bill was doing in New England. I'm sure that's followed him for a long time now. As someone who has also worked under great coaches, I'm sure you want to emulate some of the things you do, but how do you create your own identity as a coach?
I think first off, you lean on the guys that are around you. There's a lot of teamwork that goes on, and then you do what your guys do best, and you use things that either guys in a room have utilized before or things that you've seen on different staffs, and then you put them to work. And sometimes there are things that maybe you haven't even done before, but it's the right thing to do with this certain group of guys. I think that's what will be important this year on both sides of the ball, just like every year, because every year is a different group of guys. And again, that to me is one of the most important things in all of football, but in particular college football, because you have to adapt year in and year out because the guys are different. And that, based on your depth, based on the guys at certain positions, you have to predict what those things are going to look like and how they're going to play out throughout the season. This may be something that it can hold up for about 5 or 6 weeks, but once you get to the middle of the season or end of the year, it's going to dry up. All right, what's the next step, and try to think ahead. And I think that we try to do the best we can through our experiences to predict what those things are going to be, so that we have enough scheme, but not too much to overwhelm them.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
When CBS reported on Friday that you guys, the team is scheduled to visit the White House as national champions on April 14th, the day that the right day. Do you have any thoughts on getting to visit?
Yeah, it's an honor to be invited. We were formally invited, and it's customary. And I remember growing up and watching the national championship teams go to the White House, and I always looked at that like, man, what an honor that would be. And so it's part of the celebration of our team. And I think the Eagles are maybe going before us, but I think our date is April 14th. Yep. So looking forward to getting all that planned out.
Tim May. The Tim May Show.
Oh, thank you, Jerry. I wasn't kidding, by the way, but I told you in your office. But I'm just here for a little. Caleb Downs, how much license do y'all give a guy to like work with other guys? I mean, he seems like he's coaching as much as he's playing sometimes anymore and stuff. But how does that fall into kind of what you want from a guy like that?
Yeah, anytime that you can look at it like a coach, that's the last level of understanding. We talk about knowing what to do, how to do it, but then understanding why you do it. And you always think about when you master something, you can usually teach it, whether it's a teacher or growing up with a subject. And so when he's maybe not getting as many reps this spring, healing up, but he's doing great, by the way, with that. But he's got an opportunity to get around guys and help teach. And that not only does it keep him engaged, it also keeps the young guys engaged, shows how important that is, but it also allows him to understand it at a deeper level. So I think all of that is good, and he has the capability to do that.
Does he have that in his future, do you think, if he wants to be?
Yeah.
30 years from now.
Yeah, there's not much that when Caleb doesn't put his mind to it, it's not going to happen. I mean, he's a smart guy who, just really is intentional in everything he does. He's got a tremendous amount of discipline, and he's very intelligent.
Bill Landis, podcast.
Right. Did you guys learn anything in the playoff about the viability of rotating on the offensive line that might make you want to do that sort of as a matter of course this season?
Yeah. When you're playing this many games with 18 to 22-year-olds, yeah, you need to have depth. You have to, because you just know along the way to think that everyone's going to be there for all 16 games is unrealistic. So we've got to try to figure out ways to roll guys at all positions, and there's not one position I don't think that's the case. But I do think the best example of that was the offensive line coming off of last year, and that's what we're going to use as the example. We need to do. We talk about power of the unit. And I'm actually not even there yet, but that's kind of like the next phase, even for next week with the staff that I haven't really gotten into, is like depth. I know it's always been a big thing before, but now it's not just like putting the starters out there. It's like, how much depth can you have to be able to sustain this long season? It isn't just about 1 game, 2 games, 3 games. It's about the entirety of the 16-game season and being able to do that and making sure that at your position, you have enough talent and production, but you also have enough depth to survive the season. And to me, that's important now more than it was in the past.
Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Brian said he's given a lot of thought to coaching up the box or being down on the field. But he hadn't made a decision on that. It's something you would have a lot of input on as well. What are your thoughts on an offensive coordinator trying to call plays from the sideline, preparing the booth, taking it away from this guy?
It's a comfort level of what you're seeing. And then there's I liked when I was just calling it to be down on the field because I could look him in the eye. But I also like to be around the quarterback and talk to the quarterback. I think if all things are equal and you had a veteran quarterback, you can see more up top. You can be more organized. It's almost like playing a video game. You're detached from it all. And you can think a little clearly. You don't get caught up in the emotion of the game. You lose a little bit of looking somebody in the eye and see how things are going down there during the game. But it's a little bit of a feel. So I think as time goes on, we'll kind of let Brian try to figure that out. And we get into the preseason, we'll do some scrimmaging in the stadium. The spring game will probably be a little bit of a snapshot for him. But I'll leave it up to him on that decision.
And final question, Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Ryan, staying on that track, like with Brian, obviously as a wide receivers coach, he's the best in the country and it is viewed that way by pretty much everyone. Chip was the guy in the headset, but he was talking to the quarterback as the quarterback's coach. How do you balance what Brian needs to do with the receivers versus what he needs to do with the quarterbacks versus what he needs to do with play calling, et cetera?
Yeah, well, I think he's got help here with myself and with Billy, Devin. I did it before where I did coach the receivers and called plays. And I think one of the things that we talked about, Brian and I, was just having enough interaction with the quarterbacks so that he does know and he's on the same page, because I think that's important. But it's sort of a team effort. We're all involved with this. So I think every week that goes by, he'll get a better feel for it and how that goes. But I think one thing that helps us in recruiting, it helps us with the guys, is just the stability of the offense, the stability of Brian, the stability of myself involved with all of those guys that keeps this thing moving. And we're all talking the same language. And I think that's that's good for quarterbacks to know the rules are the rules. The wide receivers, the rules are the rules. If you just stick to the rules, things are going to go good. And there's not a lot of gray area when it comes to the passing game. And because it's, going on 9 years of trial and error and different things. And so, we know certain, buckets of plays or styles of plays that fit certain, skill sets in terms of quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends, running backs. And, so that part's good. There's not like a lot of trial and error right now. So we all know exactly what it should look like. And we all know the coaching points along the way. But we do have to make sure that there's not a lot of too many voices in the quarterback's head. That has to make sure that it's consistent across the board to make sure the development is strong, because as we all know, it all goes through the quarterback, and that's the most important thing.
Coach, thank you very much.
All right, guys. Thanks. Yep.
Hey, Mike, you text Tony, but no. Coach Patricia. All right, folks, we're going to talk a little defense with defensive coordinator Matt Patricia. All right, second row right, we'll open.
How's everybody doing? Good. Great. All right, sorry. Let's go. I'm good. It was fun.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
When we talked with James before you guys started spring practice, he mentioned when you were hired, one of the first people he talked about was CJ, and it seems like you two have gotten well acquainted very quickly here. What about his skill set, when maybe you look at some other guys that you've had in defenses in the past, makes him so unique and someone that you couldn't wait to maybe work with?
Yeah. He's a tremendous guy, just the energy and the excitement, and he's always trying to please, he's really eager to learn everything. Skill set wise, he's really unique, like he can play off the ball, he can play on the ball. He does a good job of transitioning his vision. Sometimes when you go behind the line of scrimmage, you got to adjust your vision, but he does that very well. And then just, I would say, his explosive power. When you watch him, obviously pass rush, and he can have some great skill pass rushing on the edge, but even in the run game, just that explosive pop that he can have. Some of the other type of like hybrid, like outside linebacker defensive ends that I've coached in the past, similar type of skill set, similar type of body frame, things like that. And that's good, because you can use them in unique ways and in different ways, and hopefully cause the offense a little bit of, confusion when you do that with those guys. So I see a lot of similarities.
Deep right, Jeremy Birmingham, Kings of the North.
Matt, when Kerry came back from the NFL a couple of years ago, Kerry Combs, when he returned, he said that the biggest adjustment that he had to make was realizing that in the offseason before he was watching 30-year-old men practice football, and now trying to he's evaluating 14-year-olds trying to learn the game. How do you find a balance there as a guy who's watched NFL football for 25 years? How do you find it in yourself to not be too critical and like to get to the point where you're actually like a recruit? How do you get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think you nailed it. You know, when we are at that other level, we are very critical of all of it, you know, because there's enough body of work. You know, you can go through and dive in not only the skill set, but then, you know, you're trying to look at football intelligence and kind of, you know, what they've learned and how they've grown and matured. I think looking at younger players and younger kids now, you're really just looking at what are the physical attributes that they have, and then just understand the fact that, like, you know, you have to teach them a lot of the game too, which is fine, you know, and you're going to teach them different things that you want them to do. So just really looking at, you know, some of the raw talent, I think has been pretty awesome, you know, and obviously really just for myself, it's been a while since I've watched that level of football, just how good it's gotten. You know, I mean, you have a vision of what it looked like 25 years ago. And I know we're all kind of, you know, we live our glory days back then too, but the kids are way better now than we ever were. So it's cool to kind of watch them all that. And you're trying to really project, you know, like, what do you see them being able to do? Framework, how big are they going to get? You know, sometimes they're actually going to increase their speed, their strength, their power, their explosiveness. I always like to look at little things, you know, whether it's knee bend or ankle flex, you know, that's a big one too. You know, just how flexible guys' ankles are, their ability to bend, keep their knees over the toes, move, break, transition, hip fluidity, you know, back and forth. So just really try to look at the raw talent of it. And then, you know, you can coach the other things as far as, you know, the finish, like how are they finishing on the plays, whether it's a DB through the pocket, ball skills. Some guys are more natural when they go up and play the ball in space. So just trying to evaluate that and then, you know, figure out where they're going to go as they do mature and get older and figure out the positions that they then can help you with.
Third row left, Andy Anders, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, so I'm Malik Hartford working with the little bit of spring practice we got to watch. And just what have you seen from him and what stands out about his skill set there at the safety position?
Yeah, I think he's had a great spring. I mean, really go back to the weight room. And what was great was you know, when I came in, I had an opportunity to watch him work with Coach Mick and his program and how they work. So I'm really looking at their body movement. How do they move? How are their hips? And then obviously we know, you know, position in the back end. What do we think he can do? And how do we think he would be going backwards in some situations and things like that. So I think he's done a really good job of being consistent every day, training his body. He's improved a lot. His movement has improved. His strength has improved. And, you know, he's just a student of the game. He's in here all the time studying and learning. I really like right now, I think that there is some flexibility for him to be able to play down, play back, has great range kind of in that back end too, which is really good. And now just maybe a little bit of eye control and teaching where he's reading and kind of being able to see through the uncovered lineman back into the quarterback and kind of have maybe a little bit of a football instincts and be able to jump, you know, some of the things that he sees back there to, you know, go play those plays faster. But his work and his consistency with the way that he approaches it, it's really been awesome. Like he's done a great job.
Right next door, Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Coach, D-line, a lot of new guys this year. Coach Ryan was just in here talking, and he's talked for the past year, 16 games, depth. Is this line going to get deep? Is there going to be depth to it, or it's going to be halfway through the season before you even realize, do we have the depth we need? How are you seeing that?
Yeah, you know, that's a good question too, with just obviously my newness to the, you know, the college schedule, but, you know, I'm used to kind of those 16 game seasons, you know, and the longer season. So I do think that depth is critical and just finding out exactly what roles those guys can play within the defensive line. So having some flexibility to be able to move guys around. And even when another guy comes in, understanding what his skill set is, and maybe that changes something structurally, you know, that you do to be able to try to fit what his skill set is a little bit better so that you can pull off some of those reps off the other guys to, you know, have better longevity through the season. So that, I think that's really important. I think it's important early, you know, I think it's important now too, you know, to see that what they can do so we can figure out what they do well and then make sure they're in those positions. I think you can have depth, but sometimes if you get guys out of position, you know, they might be a good player, but if they're not in the right position, then it doesn't look as good. And I think that's our job as coaches to try to figure that out, exactly what that is, so that when we do get in midway through the season and we need different guys in different spots, we're like, no, remember this guy is really good here. Let's structurally maybe do this instead this week, or, you know, for this game or whatever it might be, so that we do continually have that depth.
Over to the right, Adam King, WBNS.
Every coach has a different process of how they kind of work their way into a new place. What has it been like for you? How have you approached meeting these guys implementing who you are as a defensive coordinator?
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously awesome just to be able to come here. I mean, I have such respect for Ohio State and obviously a great year last year and Coach Day and the program and the culture that he's built. I'm a big fan, been a big fan for a long time. We come here all the time when you're at the next level and you're grabbing a lot of really good players out of the school. So you're very familiar with that. I think for me, I'm just, like I said, maybe before, like I'm just excited, I just want to teach and I want to mentor, but really right now I've got to learn, I got to listen. I've got to learn. I got to try to, understand what all the great coaches that are here, what they're doing fundamentally, and then things that we did last year structurally that are really good and, implement all that as we go forward and just try to do the best job I can to teach. I think that's my job right now is that with what we're doing and when I see it, be able to teach it and get it across to the players and the coaches. But, right now I feel like I'm the student, I'm just kind of learning and trying to take in as much as I can. And then really trying to learn the kids, trying to learn, their backgrounds and where they're from and what do they want? I think that's really important, so that I can be that mentor and that teacher and help them, along whatever path that is for them, and constantly try to encourage them to, to do all that stuff that they have to do every day and be consistent with it.
Deep right, Nick Walker, 11 in a row.
Matt, this is the first time we've talked to you since the contact period opened up for Twitter. You can't get into specifics with guys, but what's it been like to actually meet with recruits, have them on campus, get to kind of shake their hands, and what have you taken away from that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a little while for me on that deal. So it's really cool. I mean, the whole thing is like completely changed, right? I think there's so much coming at these guys so fast. I kind of feel for them sometimes, and I think for me, my approach is just I'm trying to be as direct as I can and as honest with them as I can and, just help them evaluate what I see and how do they get better. And then, visions for us going forward and how we would be able to implement that. But I really do enjoy sitting down, right now in the initial phases. I think a lot of them, because they have been, they've been recruited by Ohio State for a while. So a lot of that process is just getting to know my story a little bit and getting to know me. But at the same time, understanding and learning the player and learning the kid and what he's been through and what, kind of his journey a little bit is important in the family and all of that. And it's just kind of building that relationship. I think that's the coolest part right now. And, again, like college is great, mentoring young men, but then to, then project that into the high school level. Like I said, my parents were teachers and my dad, he did that a lot too. So just trying to keep his voice in my head a little bit, and understanding, these are young kids and really, again, like I said, there's just a lot coming at them, I think. So listening is really important. And then, just building that relationship with them.
Jimmy Watkins, Cleveland.com.
Matt, the layman might see a guy with your NFL resume jump into college and say, well, that's a backward career. But why don't you see it that way?
Yeah. I really don't. I mean, I'm very blessed for my NFL career. I was really, really lucky. I've coached great players. I had a lot of fun, but I think like I mentioned before, I think I started off as a college coach. I think that was where people really impacted me as a young man. And I think as a coach, we want to teach, we want to mentor, and that's what we want to do. And, this is a great opportunity for me to get back to that. I think it's really important right now just to, teach the game. And I know I can help them. I know I can help the kids. And if they want to go to the next level, I can give them a lot of good advice. But I mean, it's Ohio State. This is the top. So, I mean, I'm pretty lucky to be here. And again, it's a great game. The kids are great. So I think of it as just a great opportunity to go coach. And that's really what I want to do.
Joe Reedy, Associated Press.
Matt, you've got experience with New England of winning a championship, but then 2 months later quickly having to go back to work. Just with spring ball here, what's the biggest thing, just knowing it's a long season and being back in that short amount of time?
Yeah, I would say that's a really good point. I would say in my previous experience, I think one of the biggest things to try to always get everybody to understand is the urgency which you need to come back at. And we would always say it, we're just behind. We're behind everybody else. Everybody else got a jump start. Everybody's a little bit further ahead, and just try to create that urgency of what's happening right now for, our team. Like, we've got to really, be intentional about everything we do. We've got to have great urgency. We've got to rest. We got to recover. We got to do everything from, the body, but just that mindset of like, it's going to happen fast. Like, the off season is going to be shorter. We're going to be back in it before you know it. And, we can't make up that time. So how do we, if we have the mentality a little bit like we're behind everybody else, how do we catch up? What do we do? And that's that consistency and that urgency, I think, is a big part of it. And, I always tell the guys too, when you reach the top of that mountain, and this, Ohio State's always had a big target, but like there's a huge target on who you are, and everybody now is going to spend the offseason studying every facet of what you do. So you have 6 months, that team is going to be studying you during the offseason. So even if you don't play that team till middle of the season, okay, we've got 4 days to get ready for them. They've spent 6 months getting ready for us. So that urgency has to go up to understand, we've got to catch up to where they are kind of in the reverse study.
Austin Moore, the podcast.
Now you were talking going into camp about the multiplicity of the schemes and how you can adapt over time. How much of that relies on the nickel position, and how many guys could you consider on this roster to play that?
Yeah. I think multiplicity comes in a couple different ways. Nickel is huge, big nickel. If you have some of those body types, safety position in my past, has always been one of those positions that's been fun to kind of move around and put in different spots, especially when you have guys with a big skill range that play that position, because I think it makes it really hard for the offense, kind of what exactly is the defense in right now and what can they do out of it. So I do like the flexibility of the nickel and the big nickel position. I think the linebackers are really, critical in that too. Guys that can play on the ball, off the ball, and get into different structures that way is fun, to kind of put pressure on the offense. I think, here, the defensive backs, just specifically, you're talking about the nickel, like it's a great room. There's a lot of depth there. So in that situation, I'm like, okay, let's get as many guys as we can in different roles to be able to go out there and play and keep it moving on the offense, try to make them figure out like, hey, somebody else is coming in. Is this a different package? Is it a different structure? Like, is this going to be something new? I'm not really sure what this looks like, and hopefully we stay ahead of them before they figure it out. But I think the room's great. Tim, they do a great job. Matt, they do a great job back there of training those guys and bringing them in. And, they're big, they're long, they can run. I mean, if you like defensive football, those guys are great to watch back there. It's fun.
That time, just a couple more. Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You're coming from the NFL, so your perspective is probably skewed a little bit, coaching college players, and this team lost all but 3 starters.
Yeah.
How much do you have a feel for how good this defense can be, and what its identity can be, or is it just too early?
Yeah. Man, I would hate to just do that too early because wasn't here last year for that. And I have great players that are obviously, headed to the next level, but we have great young men here right now. And what I can speak on is just the work ethic, the drive, the consistency to come in every day and try to get better. That's phenomenal. Like these guys are they're working their butts off right now to try to, get out there and be successful and be consistent and, keep the standard and all of that. So, the on-field performance, sometimes I got to wait right now because I didn't really see it last year till we get to the games. But as far as the work ethic and the toughness and the, the mental part of it, it's really impressive, really impressive.
Coach, thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Good to see everybody. Yeah.
Coach Hartline, ready? Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you guys.
Thank you, sir. So long. All right, we will open up the floor for questions for Coach Hartline. Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Brian, when you have a guy like Max Clare come in who was as productive of a receiver as he was at Purdue, how exciting is that for possibilities, what you can do with him as a tight end?
Yeah, I think the tight end position's a great opportunity to create mismatches, whether it be in the run game or the pass game. Guys that are able to do both at a really high level can cause issues, I think, from the defensive perspective. So to have someone that dynamic is definitely should ideally be a bonus. But right now we're not really over focused on schematics per se, how everyone fits. We're really trying to focus on identifying what these guys maybe lack and improving those areas, and then everything they do well, we're trying to enhance. So it's really a hard focus on self-development. And I know he has a good feel for what he's good at, and I think that he's really focused on the things he can improve upon. But having guys that can do multiple job descriptions can cause issues for defenses. Yeah.
Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Brian, when we talked to you out there, you said being an offensive coordinator won't take away from what you're doing with the receivers. How are you finding balancing that time with the offense as a whole, having the headset on, talking to quarterbacks, but still getting what you need out of that receiver?
Yeah, I think for from a receiver stance, that room, I think that has some good veteran leadership. So the top of the room is well secured, and those guys are doing a really good job, and they're really deep. So we've did a good job getting a jump on the guys that just got here, some freshmen, and I think the combination of getting things going in January and kind of setting the parameters of how we operate and the expectations a little bit on again, focusing on yourself and your self-improvement, really allows those first couple groups to kind of do their thing at practice. So Coach Jordan's doing a great job helping me in that room, keeping it organized. But with all that being said, I think being organized outside of receiver meeting times and all those other times where you're the position coach, if you will, if you can stay well organized, it doesn't detract from where you're trying to be when you're supposed to be there, if that makes sense. So on the field, I'm trying to watch a lot of things. I think that based on previous opportunities, maybe I'm focused in on one guy because he made that mistake on that play last week, so I'm kind of locked in there. But it's definitely a balancing act. I'm not saying I'm a pro at it yet, but I can feel myself when I'm getting pulled one way or the other, and as long as I can keep self-assessing myself, I think our goals and what my goals are can be accomplished.
Noah Weisskopf, the Lantern.
How and where have you seen Jeremiah grow the most as a leader?
Well, I would say he, originally a leader. He's a by example type of young man. He's not going to say a whole lot, at least in years past. I would say growing would be that way. He's being a little more outspoken. I think he's speaking more in the room, in the receiver room. And, I would say just even conversations that we have, definitely just feel, more and more intellect and football IQ and all that's just growing. He's just another year older, another year of improvement. So he's growing that way, but I would say probably a little more outspoken than he was when he first walked in, since when he walked in, it was 0. So it's definitely a little more than that. He's doing a good job of always leading by example, but we're all trying to just get him out of his comfort zone and see if he can make an impact on some of his peers from a communication standpoint.
Stefan Kreisnick, Cleveland.com.
We saw the success you guys had last season with the running backs being able to kind of divide the workload and keep them relatively fresh going into the playoffs. Just how important do you think that is to this roster? Does it have to be 2 guys? Can there be a third guy that maybe has more reps than we saw from the third guy last year?
Yeah, I don't know how it'll play out. A lot, Coach Locke will have a great plan there, but I think that having depth at that position is really critical, whether it be at our level or the NFL level. You guys kind of see it every week, every year. It's a longer season. It's more like the NFL, frankly, from a snap count, game plan, games, opportunity. So to have depth, it's really important to keep guys healthy. And then if you do have an injury, you have guys that can step in and still carry that workload. I know we feel really good about the guys we have here, and we'll have some younger guys, that need to continue to grow and provide, that depth over time. But I think having multiple guys in that room do multiple things is always important. That's just good football. And those guys were elite at it last year, and it's our job, and it's their job, and that room's job to fill that void. That happens here at Ohio State every year, but that's part of the spring, frankly, and that's one of the positions probably where guys are learning, growing, and developing through that room. They're off to a good start for spring, but it's very important. Yes.
Tony Girdman, Buckeye Holiday.
Brian, you move Jeremiah and Carnell into the slot whenever you need. What does that do for Brandon? Like, how does that impact him? What do you need to see from him when that happens?
Well, I don't think anything with anyone else has any relationship to Brandon. I think Brandon and Bryson are doing a great job playing the slot. And I think that they just want to keep growing from an experience standpoint. You can't be put in enough situations that mimic a game-like environment. So trying to find ways to do that so they feel like they're getting more and more game reps. But I mean, that's kind of their primary spot, but everybody has kind of a secondary spot, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like we've done here at Ohio State, receiver wise, best players play. And, when guys go down, I don't care, where you primarily are playing, but if we have an outside guy go down, like you better be able to go out there and play some football. So Those guys know that, they believe in that, and they're on their own path. On the inside, the Carnell and Jeremiah's paths have nothing to do with BI and Bryson's.
Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Brian.
Yes, sir.
Brian's talked a lot about the 16 games, and you mentioned it today, and planning for that. Going back even a year when that became a reality, how have you seen Ryan just take that and manage that and make that part of everything you guys do in preparation? How did he do that well?
Yeah, I mean, you're always kind of looking around the corner for what could happen. You always got to operate that it would happen or could happen. So you're operating in the now, but you have to have perspective of the wear and tear of these guys' bodies. I think that's probably why Coach Day's best head coach in America. I mean, to be able to have perspective on the now, but then also what's coming around the corner and what could happen, and having a good plan for it. So, frankly, how well he managed it and how he did it's probably more for him. But we felt really good. I mean, with the ability to early on identify, hey, it's going to be a longer season. We need to get guys other carries. Hey, we need to get, other guys reps, whether it be in low line or receiver room or running backs, especially, we had that perspective. He had that perspective, and came to fruition. I think that there's no guarantees, right, in sports. I mean, you just try to do the best you can on increasing your odds of being in the right situation at the right time. And when you do that, it all kind of comes together. We wouldn't have changed how we did it early on to get to where we were if it didn't work out the way it did. But Coach had great perspective on the longevity of it all, and kept us on track, 3 quarters through the season. So ended up paying off in the end.
Bill Benowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
I think this might have been the first time Ryan was not asked a quarterback question, so I'll ask you. What are your impressions of the 3 guys? What has stood out to you about each of those guys?
What has stood out to me? I would say that the first thing, again, just if I can try to, sever off previous years just right now and allow these guys to be the best version of themselves without, being judged by years past. I would say right now, I'm impressed with the way they have grown even day to day. Like we've already seen improvements from day one. Nowhere near where we want to be, but they're doing a great job spending extra time on their own, being prepared for practice. The way that our schedule went long last year, and now we kind of got spring not jammed up, but just, it's a little more in a shorter period of time, right? So we want the same amount of work. So these guys, there's a lot of demand on the weekends of, being prepared and spending extra time. And I felt that. I felt them more prepared. I felt them improve on the field. I think the communication pre-snap has improved. Execution post-snap has improved. And we are pushing installs now. So they're doing a good job handling that. I think there's been improvement from a command standpoint. Everything is new for Tavian. Doesn't matter, how early you come in January or not. The speed at which the game plays is just, you can't replicate. So he's learning, and that's probably the biggest thing that's jumped out at me is that they're working to try to control the controllables. And as defense changes and things change and picture changes, they're learning from it and hopefully making each mistake once and moving forward. So I appreciate the way they're spending extra time. I think it feels like to be prepared for the day-to-day activities. Yeah.
Dylan Davis,
Milan didn't get here until June last year. Where have you seen this really grow? How different is he now this having that time as opposed to?
Yeah, it's not that he's trying to, but it's easy to minimize the work you didn't get because you don't think it's really that important until you go through it. So this past winter he went through it, and he was pretty frank about how important it was for him even this past winter. And to miss that can really have a ripple effect. Again, not that we can't make up for it and make it work, but that's still a lot of work that you haven't done, both individually and your teammates. Haven't seen that. So that's really important. I feel like. Yeah, he's made a lot of great strides. I think this spring has been, is really good for him. It's just still his first spring, which is kind of crazy to think about. So, but yeah, he's just chasing, making that play. He's going to make that play. Just like everybody else, he's going to chase that consistency level and just being that guy that just always makes that play, because the guy that always makes that play is that guy, So that's what we're always chasing. It's not if, it's how often. And so he's doing a really good job building his body up. He's bigger, he's stronger. Culturally, he does a great job. I don't think he's ever late. He's doing a good job just continuing to grow on the field. And he's putting a good foot forward so far this spring. Yeah.
Tyler comes in with a lot of play calling experience.
Yep.
What have you learned so far from him that you could kind of take and adapt to the way that you're going to call plays, or have you guys talked about those kind of things at all?
No, just kind of, working through run game install. I would say that we've done a great job of putting together a great offensive staff. I think that everyone provides really good value. And I think that I'm really excited about it, frankly. We're all going to keep growing and learning and getting our quirks out and how we do things. But we're working on ways to enhance. There's not a whole lot of changing that needs to happen, just enhancing and finding consistency. So whether it be Tyler or anybody on staff, I think we've put together a pretty good offensive staff. And, I think we'll keep growing in our own right. Yep.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You talked about the top of your room a little bit, but has anything stood out about Quincy Porter through these first couple of months that he's been here?
I would say that, I did. I made a comment on the top of the room. I'd say that the room is really healthy. I would say that ultimately, the newer guys always dictate how good the room can be. There's always projections every year. Oh, this year's, receiver room, this year's receiver room, this year's running back room, this year's O-line room. Now, I think having the guys that are coming back that know the offense, that have been pretty productive, is one thing that checks that box. But how good the younger guys are really will dictate how good the room is. And I think that, all four of those guys are doing a really good job of learning the offense. Culturally, they're doing a great job of doing what is expected, and they're studying. They're doing a good job learning the plays. We're going to have mistakes. We know that, but there's a lot of care from the young guys. I think, Phillip Bell and Des Jones and Quincy Porter and Bob Penn Miller really have done a good job putting in extra work, trying to get caught up, trying to hold the standard of the room. And the standard being in spring, like, hey, we're going to make mistakes, but let's make that mistake once and continue to learn. And so those guys have bought into that. Their finish, their strain, their hard work on the field is showing up. And when you catch them on it and they didn't do it, they understand they were wrong. So really, encouraged by those young guys. And, I think Quincy is doing a good job within that group.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Trying to follow up on some of the dynamic with you wearing the headset and stuff, how practices and balancing that with your receivers. How, when you were doing this 2 years ago in spring with some of the play calling, didn't have the headset, that was like the newer technology now in terms of calling stuff in and talking to the quarterbacks. Like how different is that? Is that like a adjustment, or like what is that?
No, it's not. It's not really much of an adjustment. I think you're just sharing the information. Before, you were talking to the signaler, and the signaler was relaying the information to the quarterback. So now it's kind of a straight line to him. I'll always make sure that I think clarity of message is really, really important. So, at the end of the day, whether it's right or wrong, that's a different time for a different conversation. I think clarity of message, of asking guys to do one job, is really important. To have him hear one thing from another guy and another thing from another coach, that's not good football. So when it comes to the quarterbacks, I'll always be in line with Coach Fessler. So I want to make sure that whatever he's talking to and whatever he's saying, I'm echoing that. And if I don't like what is being said, then we'll have a conversation about that. But on the field, you want clarity. And the information goes straight to the quarterback. It's also going to the signaler and everything too. But no, I don't think it's a vast change. I just got to be very, sensitive to make sure what's coming through the mic and what I'm saying, and not, making the quarterbacks hearing something they shouldn't be hearing. And that's probably the biggest thing, where before you kind of had just a signaler hearing whatever you want to hear, or whatever you say, and they have to do a good job of not telling anybody. But, I would say that I'm just making sure I don't have a lot of noise on the headset for the quarterbacks.
And final question, Jeremy Birmingham, Kings of the North.
Brian, as 2 years ago, other than the headset, obviously you were in this position in the spring. What 10,000-foot view, what is different now? Why are you more prepared for this and more ready for it? How do you see that confidence growing?
I would say that, yeah, it's been 2 years, and I guess, selfishly, individually, maybe grown a little bit. But I don't know. It is different. I couldn't always tell you why. I think that the staff around me is awesome. Not that it wasn't then, but really comfortable in my skin. And I think, being around Coach Day, Coach Bailey, Chip Kelly, pick them, Justin Fry, it was, if you're not around and you're not learning, you're not growing, then you're kind of wasting your time. So try not to waste a day of that. I'm not saying we're perfect like everybody else in this room, but we're surrounded by a lot of elite individuals. So try to maximize each day, and when the opportunity presents itself, be a better version of yourself. And there's some opinions on why I think it might be a little different now, but keep those to myself. I think I've grown individually, frankly, and I'm just excited for the opportunity.
Great. Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.